Hey everybody, Mike Naso from IPR with a little tropical video update. We have three areas we're watching in the Atlantic. The first is an area of low pressure associated with uh, troughiness off the east coast of the United States. This will likely become a tropical storm or a subtropical storm over the next few days. We also have a tropical wave up here near, say, 20 north and 55 west. That is moving towards the west or west-northwest, currently in an unfavorable environment, but that could also develop down the road in a few days. And we have another area that's over Honduras, Nicaragua, and the southwest Caribbean Sea. That's going to move northwest towards the Gulf of Mexico, and we could have some development with that. First, we're going to start with the main area of concern, which is off the southeast U.S. coast. We have two areas of low pressure. The first is to the east-southeast of Cape Cod, and that's heading on off towards Nova Scotia. The second is off the outer banks of North Carolina, and that one's going to sit for a few days over the Gulf Stream, and so we could very well see Tropical Storm Beryl form before kind of heading on out. Remember Cristobal back in 2002 did the same thing? That's what we could be dealing with here. You can see this wave ahead of it approaching. This, I think, could be more of a lasting concern. We'll talk about that in a second. Here's another look at the system, and you can see the flow around it's not all that favorable, but definitely thunderstorms persisting, and the hurricane center thinks things could happen. This will become our invest pretty soon. Another system, the models have been hinting that a general area of cloudiness and showers will just kind of move over Nicaragua, over El Salvador, Central America, and the energy axis will move in towards the Bay of Campeche in the Western Gulf and become a tropical system, which is very possible. We saw that last year with Brett and Gert and Jose and Stan, all in the Bay of Campeche last hurricane season. Although this time last year we had a Category 4 Hurricane Emily south of Jamaica. Big difference this year, showing that 2005 was a major anomaly. There's the tropical wave currently approaching the northern Windward Islands, the northern Virgin Islands, and this kind of popped up by surprise. I think the shear kind of increased a little bit, and so waves fight off with more shear. In fact, you could have a system that never becomes anything and just floats into the eastern Pacific, but if you have a little bit of wind shear to keep it there and fight, it blows up convection, then the wind shear goes away and it develops without just going into the eastern Pacific. So we'll have to watch this. This wave could certainly do stuff in the future. So is it possible that we could see Beryl, Chris, and Debbie? Well, I don't think we'll get all three, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Here's the latest wind shear map. Look at the dramatic decrease in wind shear across much of the Atlantic basin. All this favorable. You see at most 20 knots of wind shear. And again, that's a hindrance, but not really preventing development. But most of it is 10 knots or less, which is extremely favorable for development. So if we did get a system in the Gulf of Mexico, it would not be out of the realm of possibility to see it become a hurricane or even a strong hurricane if it sat over that favorable waters long enough. Now, if we do get a system here off the southeast coast, right now wind shear is kind of low, especially to the north. So you have a good area of outflow, Gulf Stream, low shear. Could very well get a 60-mile-an-hour storm or even a hurricane. I mean, you don't know. Remember Hurricane Gustav a few years ago? Get a system, stalls out here, and then get shot off. Steering currents will be weak, so we'll probably have one that drifts around. So it could either do nothing or become one of those storms where it's always exposed, or become a storm that becomes a hurricane. We'll wait and see. Our wave out here is still under a lot of shear. That will have to wait until later. And then our system down here in the Caribbean Sea is moving towards an area of favorable weather, also noticed in the eastern Pacific, very low shear, and I'll tell you why that's important for the East Pac. SSTs today, currently very warm in the Gulf, and then cooler out towards the Atlantic. That's why a lot of these tropical waves are coming off strong and then kind of fading, but then as they get back, they'll form closer to land and then strengthen, which is what we saw last year, and we don't want to see that again. Nevertheless, looking pretty warm out there. Eastern Pacific, you could see we have a couple of systems. There's what's left of Bud moving well out, barely a remnant low anymore. There's Tropical Depression Carlotta, was at one time a hurricane. Just yesterday, in fact, it was a hurricane, not anymore. Here is what will become Hurricane Daniel, and behind it will likely become Hurricane Amelia. And I think that's what we're going to see there. Latest on Carlotta, 35 miles an hour west at 11, 1009 millibars, continuing to weaken and move out. Did become a minimal hurricane, was at one time forecast to become a major hurricane, but never could make it because it was being sheared by Bud, and there's another, you can see a little better, there's Bud, and there is Tropical Depression Carlotta. The outflow from Carlotta is far enough away to not shear our developing tropical depression here, and so this will likely become, I'm not sure it'll become a hurricane, but it has the potential to become one, but I don't think this has major hurricane criteria. I think if it would have formed back here, then it could have become more of a strong hurricane, but at this point I think if at most it would become a minimal hurricane, if it develops at all. Western Pacific, some showers near the Philippines, some showers out here. These could become future tropical systems, but as of right now, nothing.